we have a lot to cover. So folks may continue to wander in, and they're more than welcome, but we're going to start. Is that okay with you?
Yeah.
All right. This is our agenda. What we're going to do is talk a little bit about why would anybody create a church that you can't drive to? And with no parking lots. Well, that might be a good reason. And how we went about doing that. And then, Wi-Fi permitting, we are going to join a worship service in progress in Second Life, so that you get an idea of what worship looks like in a virtual community. And then we're going to leave some time for questions and answers, and we may not get to all of your questions, but we have a booth down in the exhibit hall, number 617, and we are delighted to even help you get a free account in Second Life and your own personal guided tour anytime you would like one. So that's what we are going to do. I'm Jerry Garber. I, by the grace of God, was founding minister of this project, which is now just about 4 years old. I want to introduce to you two of my colleagues, well, three of my colleagues. Yanni is here with us too. Doug Jenkins is our senior lay volunteer in the virtual ministry. All these folks are volunteers. No one's ever been paid a nickel. If I get a foundation behind it, I'm going to change that one of these days. The Reverend Christine Metcalf-Ing is our newest clergy recruit and does our wonderful morning services. More about that later. And Yadi is a seminarian who hangs out on our beach and does her homework, and that may take a little explanation. All right, so let's talk about what's going on and why we did this, if Doug can figure out how to advance the slide. And he did, look at that. Well, he actually did it twice, but that's all right. All right, we had a couple of basic sets of reasons in the why category. Why do this? The first of them had to do with personal journeys, including my own. I was doing research for a book that I never bothered to finish. I have written a book on this project, which will be out in August, but another book that I didn't finish. In what I call the alphabet soup community, the LGBTQIA group, that many of you know has been wounded. I'm from the I group. I was born in the intersex group and had all sorts of corrective surgery as a child that I don't want you to hear about, and a lifelong fascination with cross-dressing, which I do not want you to try to get a mental picture of. And was kind of doing research in the world, kind of trying to discover what was it in my own journey that I might share with somebody else. Well, I discovered I had a little bit of company in there. And let me describe to you what that was like when I finally told a bunch of people what my real life profession is. I want you to imagine a great big granite wall. And there's a button in that wall, and it's labeled push to start. And you do, and discover that you are at the base of Niagara Falls. I got messages. They came in I thought by the dozens for a while. Can God love someone like me? Are there others like me? You told people? How did you do that? On and on and on. 6 months worth of that. And I had pretty well concluded that maybe it was time to start a church, and I knew it could be done because some seminarians, Kimberly Knight, many of you probably know Kimberly, had started one with a group of seminarians which had long since become defunct in Second Life. But I thought, time to start a church. And I went to a conference minister with an idea, and more about that in a little bit. The second group of reasons has to do with this. You all know what I meant by it. That generation is leaving us in droves. They're not going to come back. So some of us are beginning to think that it is time for a paradigm addition. Not a paradigm shift, not a replacement, but adding a component to this wonderful UCC that takes the church to the people rather than insisting the people come to the church. Now, I want to give you one example before we move on of that, which combines the first reason and the second reason. I met a person named Stacy in Second Life, and Stacy believed that she was transgender and was living in her birth gender, so to speak, as a guy, but being beat up on pretty regularly at work. It was tough. And so our two avatars were sitting in a virtual hot tub. You are welcome to get a mental picture of that if you like. And talking one evening, and I said, well, how are things at home? Two alcoholic parents. Not much support there. I said, well, if you thought about leaving, well, I'm not sure I can afford it. And so she was just miserably unhappy. So after about 45 minutes, I just typed a question in our text chat. What decisions are you postponing? And the conversation ended. I didn't say anything of her for about 3 weeks. If you're clergy, you know exactly how that goes. All right? And when I saw her next, I typed, how's it going? I'm moving out of the house. I told them at work to lay off. And I'm thinking about going back and earning a master's degree in social work. I simply typed, what happened? The answer came back in 2 words, you listened. If there was a birth point for this, that was it. And I realized that just being a non-anxious presence for someone who had no other access could make a profound difference. And so that's the why we did this, or at least the Reader's Digest version. There's much more to it. You come see us and we'll share some more stories with you. Let's talk some about the how. First of all, I had to learn something about Second Life. And I have been poking around trying to figure out how to build things. And finally I decided I'm going to go to school in Second Life. So I did. I went to, and you're going to love the name of the school I chose, Builders Brewery. And my little tag that hangs over the avatar's heads, you'll see that in a moment, read, Brewer of Fine Primitives. Primitive objects, the things we build things out of in Second Life. I love the place. All of the instruction was free, and I was often taking about 8 hours of classes a week. I got to the point where I could take a little cube, 1/2 meter square, I can tie it in a bow, paint it purple and give it white polka dots, mathematically. You don't have to learn anything about that to have a good Second Life experience, but I wanted to build because I wanted to acquire real estate within Second Life, a campus on which to build the church that you're going to visit here in a few minutes. And that takes a little bit of knowledge beyond just casual Second Life use. But I want to reiterate that having a wonderful Second Life experience does not require at all acquiring that kind of expertise. Nor, I should add, do accounts in Second Life cost anything, completely free. So you can come and participate as much as you like, and it won't cost you anything at all. So I spent some time learning. I visited lots and lots of churches, some of which horrified me.
Are you
Yes.
talking about Second Life churches?
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you for the question. Yeah, Second Life churches. Just to give you an idea, after we had become a church, I found a little avatar wandering around our campus, and I said, hello, may I help you? And she said, I'm not sure anybody can. Well, what's the matter? And she passed to me a note card that she had received in another church saying, you're transgendered and you're going to burn in hell. and you are not welcome here. Need I say more? So a lot of that kind of stuff going on that I saw and found myself increasingly horrified. So we're very, very open about who we are, and in fact, we were in the Open and Affirming Coalition before we had STEM. And the transgender and the rainbow flags fly at our landing and in our sanctuary, so that people have no question at all about what it is we believe. And that notion called extravagant welcome, for us, that is dead serious business. We mean it. And some other places in Second Life, alas, do not. Then we had to deal beyond the learning with the legalities. We're going to establish a church. I had to do what was required in the Southern California Nevada Conference. And I also was aware of the fact that eventually we were going to have to support it. So I incorporated us as a religious nonprofit corporation in the state of California and recruited a board of directors. Two of our board members are sitting right here keeping me honest today. And went about all of this stuff to acquire an IRS 501c3 designation. We are a public charity. Hint, 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 hint. That's the only hint you're going to and took care of all of that sort of stuff. I was also serving on the executive committee of the Eastern Association. And I began to talk a little bit with the church and ministry leadership about virtual reality and real life standing. And people were kind of going, huh? And their eyes glazed over when I tried to describe the project to them. I just sort of hung in there and gave people a chance to have a look. And when the Southern California Nevada Conference declared us an experimental ministry for a year, that helped. And then after a year, they said, oh, forget the experimental part. You're an established fact. And at last General Synod, if you were there, you may remember that we were introduced with a shout out from the stage as a new church start. Last November 5th, we achieved full standing. We are the first in the world in any mainline denomination to have full standing as a church, no physical location whatsoever. And nor do we need one, because I don't need parking lot problems. Then we established the idea of trying to build a ministry, and I began to think about what that would look like. And on our original board of directors were two clergy persons who are still there. One of them is also a PhD psychologist who I was batting ideas around with regard to what I call the migration effect come business, and I'll talk to you about that. The combination of real life and second life experiences that contributes to the totality of who we are. But I began to think about, what does ministry look like in a virtual world beyond being the non-anxious presence? And there's a lot of need for that. And how can we do worship services, including serving communion? And yes, we do. We don't do baptisms and we don't do marriages because of legal issues, of course. Those we refer to our real life colleagues. But I walked out the door of my home one day and ran into a neighbor, the Reverend Dr. Kathy Black, who had been a homiletics professor of mine at Claremont. And Kathy said, I heard about your project. You're serving communion? I said, Kathy, it's strange you should mention it. I've been wrestling with it for a year. I think I finally figured out a way to do it. I'm a process thinker. God is everywhere. People can hold the elements in their hands. We'll do the words of institution. I think it'll work. She looked at me, grinned, and said, works for me. I thought, okay, I got it blessed. So we're good to go. And we've been serving communion on the first Sunday ever since then, and on other appropriate days. So essentially we can do anything that you can do. So worship service, in our traditional worship services, music, a homily, music so people can be thinking about the prayer. They're going to type into text chat because we do a bidding prayer, a group prayer, a pastoral prayer, One of our pastors then does a closing hymn. I try to get everybody out of the sanctuary to go dance in one of our nightclubs. Beats coffee hours, particularly virtual coffee hours, where all you see is the avatar holding a mug. It doesn't work so well. And we thought, well, okay, that'll work. And so we did a couple of traditional worship services a week for a period of about 6 months. And then I got to thinking, that's not enough. And I need to do something else. So I thought maybe a meditation on the Psalm of the evening would work. So I devised what we call our Psalter service. We do 5 nights a week Psalter services. Incidentally, the total is 10 worship services a week right now, on our way to 21, we hope. More about why that's a good idea later on. I got to recruit a few more, volunteers, in order to make that happen. In the Psalter service, people gather in our Peace Grove meditation ring and sit. We do that one only in text, where the traditional are done both in voice and text. And we stream New Age music in the background. We scroll the Psalm of the evening. We allow 5 minutes for meditation. We do a community prayer and a dismissal, and then people hang around for 3/4 of an hour to chat. Now, the hanging around to chat after a Psalter, or after worship, or after Chris's morning meditation, Monday, Wednesday, Friday at 8 o'clock in the morning, beginning to attract European folks to that. The chat that happens afterward is the important part. And it is part of the key to making churches in virtual universes work. There has to be a sense of community that goes beyond the worship experiences, that invites people to share what's on their minds and hearts as much as they care to. We tell folks, when you come to First UCC Second Life, you will find first gentle curiosity about who you are. If you're telling folks, I'm having a terrible day, you'll find words of encouragement to the extent that folks can do that for you, and interest the next time they see you in how it's going. Social psychologists and cultural anthropologists writing in the academy have remarked now for a long time about the intensity of relationships in virtual reality. They are incredibly intense. And there is a compression of time that takes place. People get to know each other and bond very, very, very quickly. Often they meet in real life. They exchange phone numbers and email addresses, and they participate actively in each other's lives. I don't know how it is in your real life church, but if I were to be missing for 4 days, there'd be panic. And it's true for any of our members. We get seriously worried if we have not heard from them. And there's one woman, to give you another example, in our membership group. I happen to know she lives in Cheyenne, Wyoming. She lost her husband about a year ago, and it was pretty tough. She was raising a grandson then alone. She's not employed, so on assistance. And the grief was overwhelming. One of our lay members and I put together a grief support group that met every week for 8 weeks. She participated, said it made a huge difference. We repeated it in Advent, and probably will repeat it every Advent because that's such a tough time for folks. Things like that grow up that replicate things that we can do in real life, but are customized to fit a virtual existence. Suffice it to say that there is virtually nothing, with the exception of baptisms and marriages, that you would do in a real-life church that we cannot also do in a virtual church. We make substitutions. Instead of coffee hours, we go dance. We do things of that sort that are a little different. But then I have a campus with two 65,000 square meter islands, an 8-story apartment building because we don't want our volunteer avatars to not have a home to log into, or having to change clothes in public, which is tacky in any world that you're in. So we have apartments for them. It has 2 nightclubs. You'll catch a little theme here. The Rainbow Room, that's techno, house, and industrial, and the Comma Cafe, which is adult top 40. So we bounce into those to dance after worship and so forth. And we find people just sort of hanging out in there any hour of the day or night. There are chapels on the campus. There is a beach. There is a rooftop formal garden, a greenhouse, a swimming pool, a recreation of the garden tomb that is also a worship center, and all sorts of other things. It changes with the seasons so that it remains interesting. And isn't it amazing what you can build when you don't have to use real building materials? You can do a lot with ones and zeros. The idea behind all that silliness is actually quite serious. It's a fun place to be with friends, and in the frenetic world of Second Life, it's often sanctuary. It's safe. Second Life has a dark side. So does real life. And anything you can do in real life, you can do in Second Life, and I mean that without exception. You can take it from there. So for many, looking for a place that they know is safe and that they know they're not going to be hit on is important. But a young woman who we've not now seen in a couple of years, I think she has managed to move on in life, but suffered a catastrophic injury just after graduating from high school, and there was some brain damage that was temporary, thankfully. And a young woman, Avatar, and she regularly got approached by young guy avatars. And sometimes it was unwelcome, and she was not in an emotional state where she could deal with it. We were sanctuary. I would find her at all hours of the day and night, often doing her homework, like Yadi does, on our beach or in one of the chapels someplace, just hanging out because it was safe. And then when she would spot me, she would always say hi, and we would talk, and I would find out how her day was going, just like you would if you met somebody on the lawn of your real-life church. All right, finally, and I'm watching our time because we're about 7 minutes away from joining a real-life worship service, Wi-Fi willing, okay? Standing. I concluded at almost the very beginning of the project that if we were going to be taken seriously and not as a game, oh, and incidentally, when you come into Second Life, do not tell a Second Life resident, this is a fun game. They're going to get seriously bent out of shape. All right? To them, it is not a game. It is a second life that contributes mightily to their real life and vice versa. So that's one of the things you need to be careful about. You can play games there, but it is most emphatically not a game. We decided that in order to achieve standing, we wanted to be sure that we could cross all the T's and dot all the I's. It was clear to us that we were very likely to be the first. And if you cut corners, you know what happens to the guy behind you? They spend half of their life cleaning up the mess you made, before they can move their initiative forward. So we didn't want to leave something behind. And in the book that I've done on it, I even include all of the bylaws changes that we did to enable it in the Eastern Association's Southern California Nevada Conference. So let me give you an example of one way that we accommodated what needed to happen to gain standing. If you read the bylaws of your local association, it probably says something like, any church having its geographical location within the boundaries of. Geographical location? That's meaningless for us. We don't have a geographical location. So I pulled that section of bylaws out. I took out the words geographical location, and I inserted any virtual church having its corporate address within the boundaries of the association and having at least one member of its board of directors a member of a church in the association, etc., etc. Now, why did I put that last phrase in there? Clergy accountability. It's important that the clergy remain in connection with their association and their conference and the wider church. So we built that requirement in purposefully to be sure that that always had to be there. One of those things that would have been kind of easy to overlook, and we got to think about that, no. And I was working with the Mesa team folks, doing some consulting in another part of my life with them, and got some really good advice from them on things that ought to be included, and I remembered that conversation, and we got that done. We already had a sponsoring organization. It was the conference board of directors that had declared us a ministry. So Section 8 Church and Ministry appointed a liaison person, and I brought her in World. The first time she visited us, and I think maybe the only time, or maybe there was one other, I spent 2.5 hours with her dragging her around Second Life. She finally confessed to being on emotional and intellectual overload. And could we please stop? And she went back and reported to Section 8 and said, this guy's not kidding. You know, this thing is, yeah. But they spent some time kind of, going through the whole process with us. And then, of course, there was a vote at a gathering of the association, which I'm pleased to tell you was unanimous. And we achieved standing on November 5 of last year. And that's when I published the article that some of you may have read in UCC News on, gee, UCC's now got a virtual church. Isn't that cool? So that's how we got to all of that, and it's almost time to go into virtual reality. So we're going to take you to First United Church of Christ Second Life. Now, in the 2 minutes that I've got before we join, is that about right? Yeah. I want to tell you what it is you're going to be seeing. We are going to arrive at the landing point. So when you all get your Second Life accounts, we'll help you do it. And you come to our campus, you're going to arrive at our landing. And from there, your avatar can walk, run, fly, or teleport instantly to any place else you'd like to go. Doesn't that beat driving to church and hoping there's a parking place? I mean, we have some advantages, we really do. So you're going to see our landing, and then Doug, who is going to be controlling my avatar, and Doug, you can go ahead and take us to the landing right now. There we are.
Yeah, he's controlling my avatar.
Okay, well, we need to get us online.
Yeah, we have to get on.
Okay.
So would you get rid of the PowerPoint up here on the screen by just killing it?
Yeah.
And go back and give us Second Life.
That's just the, yeah, there you go.
There we go.
That's the one.
No.
Get him there.
No, now you're back on PowerPoint.
Okay, there we go.
Bonsai. Okay, you just got to press right. The guy in the white there is my avatar. Looks a little like someone that you've become acquainted with today, except his chest has not settled, so to speak. And you now learned one of the wonderful things about Second Life and creating your own avatar, all right? which you can really customize. That building over there, I built about a year ago to replace our original worship building, is our worship center. Sanctuary is on the first floor. A future museum of all sorts of other UCC entities that we're going to start cooperating with is on the second floor. Top floor, our formal ballroom. You got to have one of those, right? Called Club Diversity. All right? So we're going to walk in very shortly into that. Doug, cam around, if you would, first. And we'll show folks a little bit more of the campus. There we go. There's a board there that talks about our coming events, both social and worship, and some information about our campus. And then Doug keeps camming around there. That's the Sunrise Place building with the apartments and the 2 nightclubs and all that sort of thing. There's a big wooded area to walk through on the way to Peace Grove. We also have an art garden back there that one of our members is going to be curator of very shortly. And does that tell people what we believe? Nothing very ambiguous about those flags. And we occasionally will have an avatar land there and go, oh, poof, and they're gone, okay? And which is fine, which is just fine. All right, I think it's time to walk in. So Doug's going to walk me into the sanctuary. And there's a sign there. Oh my goodness, it looks like you were expecting. All right, and you can hear voices there. Chris just walked into the sign.
I just walked into the sign.
And Doug opened the door and he's going to walk our avatars in. There we go. And we're just going to stay back here in the back for a little bit. This is a worship service in progress. I'm going to let you enjoy.
General Synod was held side by side with the Christian Church Disciples of Christ's General Assembly. Can't keep it secret. I still hold on to the hope that we might merge at some point and become something strong and new. But that's not the point I was trying to make. I mean to say that my Synod experience was, for me anyway, a beautiful example of the UCC's dedication to forging ecumenical partnerships with other churches all around the world. Unfortunately, I'm afraid that for many of us, that isn't the strongest memory of that particular sin. Nor, unfortunately, will our dedication to social justice. Even though we passed a resolution in support of the coalition of MLK workers' boycott of Taco Bell. By the way, when last I checked, Wendy's was the lone holdout on that issue. You can make a difference. No, I'm afraid that General Synod will forever be the one that the Westboro Baptists picketed. I will always remember the hateful picket signs. AIDS is a gift from God.
That's actually one of our board members, and at the end of every service, she has to do that. Don't ask me why. What he's doing now is playing a YouTube video on our viewer that folks can hear, and you may need to enable media so they can hear it. There we go. I'm going to take a moment to tell you about the little avatar sitting on the floor. He lives in Norway. He has Asperger's syndrome. Is incredibly bright and shows up for an average of 5 or 6 services a week. He lives with a foster family, and we are his only church connection. He cannot abide crowds.
Is that his dog?
His puppy comes with him, and if it starts to bark, he detaches it.
We have come to our time in worship that I really do believe is the core of what we do here together. And that is where we uplift our joys and concerns with one another in prayer. I do need to ask that those of you in Second Life type those prayers into chat so that I don't miss anyone. And I want to be absolutely sure that the folk at General Synod
we're going to leave them now. What will happen now is closing music. We staged this for you, essentially. Not one of our regular worship services, but that give you a taste of how it works?
Spoken out loud. Those typed in the Second Life chat. And those spoken only in
Just kill
silence.
that.
And then we prayed.
What we want to do at this point is give you an opportunity to ask questions. And if there's one that you can't think of right now, come down and see us in 617. And we'll do the best we can to give you a tour or answer your questions at that point. Sir?
It seems like the trickiest part of this would be moderating the conversations that are going on amongst the people who come to your island. How do you keep it a safe place?
We learned to read, after a period of very few months, the syntax of what avatars contribute in chat. So if someone is going to be a little bit of a difficulty, we can send them an instant message which essentially says, cool it. And if all else fails, and it's only happened to us a couple of times in 4 years, I can hit a button that says eject.
So essentially, you're telling me that you've got a 24-hour monitoring thing going on here? Because it sounds as though people can come to the island anytime.
And they can, and they hang out, and we don't staff it 24 hours a day, obviously. But very often, my computer workstation at home is 3 27-inch monitors. So I have Second Life sitting in one monitor all the time, no matter what it is I'm doing. And very often my avatar is just parked there someplace. And I'll notice an avatar walk up and say hi, and then I just simply go to that and visit with that person. So I do that routinely. Other folks who happen to be around just visit with folks when they spot them, but it is not monitored otherwise, although I should add that I have on our landing a little device that sends me by email the name of every avatar that has visited us. I can use my viewer to search for that avatar, and then I send them a thanks for visiting First UCC Second Life note card that also has our schedule, something about us, a link to our website. It's a lot faster than handwriting things, which I used to do in real life and maybe got out by Wednesday, you know how that goes. And I send an average, I would say, of 3 or 4 of those a day from new visitors. On some days, lots more than that. Anybody else have? Yes, sir.
You were talking about up to 21 different services. Can you give us a flavor of the different types of services?
Sure. Why don't you take a speech, Grove?
You talked songs.
Yeah.
What else?
Can you all hear me without that mic? You just saw one of our traditional worship services. That's replicated on Sunday. I happen to preach that particular service. Then on Monday, Wednesday, and Friday morning, our newest services are a Lectio Divina service. Chris, why don't you describe that for folks? Just take the mic there and tell them what it's about. It's our brand new service at 8 o'clock on Monday, Wednesday, Friday.
It's a service using John Philip Mill's Celtic benedictions, translations of scripture and prayers that we do Lectio Divina on. And so we read the scripture twice, and then people have an opportunity to share the part of the scripture that spoke to them and more about why that spoke to them. So it's a nice quiet way to go through the scripture.
Thanks, Chris. And then the 5 nights a week, the nights that we don't do formal services, we do the Psalter meditation service in the evening. Doug is walking us around it. Well, yeah, he's got me running. I wish I could do that in real life. I can also fly, and I tell you, I can't do that in real life. You should see me on my motorcycle. I got into a motorcycle club in Second Life. You have to do something good for somebody to get in, so I'm a rogue's nomad. Complete with black leather. Motorcycles scare the death out of me in real life. Here's Peace Grove. And Doug's already there, and we walked me in. All right, and Chris is there. All three of our avatars. This is where the Psalter takes place and the morning meditation take place. These are done only in text, and there is a music streamed in the background, which is very ambient, very New Age kind of thing. Just kind of promotes that kind of a feeling. We scroll the psalm, and then, there we go. And then 5 minutes of silent meditation, a community prayer, and a dismissal, and most times people just sit and start to chat. And that's when the clergy may get a message that says, "Do you have time to talk to me?" Any clergy person knows exactly what that means. The next 45 minutes of your life, you are called to be a non-anxious presence for someone. That's routine. They know that that's perfectly okay. If they see us in world, and there's even a place on our main landing that lets people know if we are in world, even if we're not on our campus, that they are welcome to IM us with a request to talk. Anytime they see us. Has to be that way in virtual communities. Has to be that way. Another question. Yes, sir.
Do you have a way to talk real time through the program, or can you speak in real time?
You heard Josh doing it. Okay. He was speaking from Silver Lake, right, using his laptop and their internet.
But
so
if you're doing counsel, can an avatar, in a sense, jump out of Second Life and speak with you in real time through the internet?
No. No. Everything that we do happens within the environment of Second Life. I want to add one other note here that I think is really important. While the Academy is working on therapeutic practices and virtual reality, there are profound ethical issues. Implied consent, anonymity, all sorts of things. I attended a couple of years ago at the Nonprofit Commons, one of several major organizations within Second Life, where incidentally you can go on a master's degree in business administration at several prominent universities. Your avatar goes to class. But anyway, and the session I attended was called Meet Your Therapist and Avatar. And they are making their way toward that, but all of us as clergy know, most of us are not licensed for that anyway, but everybody can be a non-anxious presence. And so that's what we concentrate on, and we restrict it very carefully to that just for ethical reasons. We all have a Rolodex, however, and very often I've referred someone to professional help on the outside, and to real-life churches. Several of our members have started here and have found real-life churches, one of whom has become a major activist for the trans community in Florida. That was Lucy that you saw today. Anybody else? We've done such a good job that nobody has any more questions. Yes, sir.
Have you met the real life counterparts to some of the avatars that you?
Yes, I have met folks in real life. In fact, Marie, who was at our service today, last summer on a vacation trip dragging my travel trailer, I parked at a state park not far from their home in Wisconsin and renewed the vows for she and her husband. Her real life husband is our DJ of choice for most of our events. Every month we do a themed dance. You haven't lived until you and your partner avatar have animated to dance together. It looks very convincing, and it is an awful lot of fun. And it's just an excuse to chat and have a good time. So I was pleased to meet them. And I have met several other folks in real life. Yes, sir.
As a person sitting at my computer joining, are there special equipment that I need?
No, sir. If you have a computer and access to the internet, we can have you set up in Second Life in a matter of minutes. No special expertise is required. No special hardware is required. We recommend a computer with reasonably good graphics capability. That's kind of nice to have. But I have an ancient computer that we're using as our kiosk machine down at the booth, 617, that's where we are. And because we'd like you to stop by.
Yeah.
And that's a Celeron processor running Vista.
Oh.
And I can get into Second Life with it. Now, we may have the Second Coming before I can get to some places within Second Life, but it actually works, so it'll run on essentially anything. If you really get deep into Second Life, yeah, there's a learning curve. I spent 6 months learning some things, but no one has to do that. And we generally give lessons on how to walk and not walk into walls to embarrass yourself. But what you also discover in Second Life is if they spot you as a newbie, people are going, let me tell you how to do that. And people are very kind and want to help you because they remember when they were first in world and were trying to navigate. I saw another hand down here. Yes, sir.
As far as communion, is that referred out to?
No, communion we do. And I think before you came in, I mentioned that I had a conversation with my homiletics professor. I walked out of the door of my home one day, and she happened to be a neighbor. And I told Kathy, I said, I'm busy with my project. And she says, you serving communion? And I took a deep breath and said, I've been wrestling with it for about a year, but yeah, I think we're going to do it. I'm a process theologian. I believe God's absolutely everywhere, as you probably do. And I said, what I'm going to do liturgically is I'm going to have people gather elements, cracker, some water, a cookie, whatever suits them, and hold it in their hands wherever they are while we do the words of institution. And then we will consume the elements together no matter where they are. And since God's everywhere, what difference does it make? She looked at me, grinned, and said, works for me. And so I had it blessed by the Academy, so we did it.
Take the question, and then I want to.
Yes?
Do people type and then their editor talks, or how does this work?
People type, just like you saw in that text chat, which everybody can read. Simultaneous with that, you can also send someone an instant message to a particular avatar that only they can read. It only appears on their viewer, not everybody else's. And as you saw the pastor doing, you can also use voice, all three. We tend to use voice only for the formal worship services, and we're kind of a text environment. Otherwise, we think it contributes a little bit to the atmosphere of the place.
And staff meetings. Use it for staff meetings.
Yeah, we use it for staff meetings, around the dining room table in my little house.
When you're counseling or listening to somebody, are you talking or?
It's private text chat only between the two of us.
And sometimes there's more than one going on at a time.
Oh, yes.
You're sitting around the fire, and you've got several people that you're doing instant messaging.
You learn to bounce back and forth between windows on your viewer because you can have 2 or 3 people that are trying to get your attention privately simultaneously. That's not unusual. That's incidentally a skill they don't teach you in seminary, but they probably ought to start.
I just wanted to share, I found this ministry through the article in the UCC News about it, and I just thought it was fascinating and amazing and got on it. It took me, I didn't have the number to be able to call people to help me in it, so I took about 3 hours working with their training things to get on. But one of the things that had amazed me from the start were the variety of people this was really helpful for. So we've talked about the LGBTQIA community, but people who are homebound, folks who can't get to a brick and mortar church because of illness or disability. What?
Panic disorder.
Panic or panic disorders. For reasons they can't get in. Folks like me right now, right? I'm currently living in a rural area where there's not any church close to me that would be comfortable for me to attend. We have a number of people like that. We have folks on the autism spectrum, again, who are not comfortable in more with crowds, with folks. So there's this variety of people who have a need for a church that will come to them and meet them where they are. And I just think that's a really fascinating aspect of the variety of people that can use it.
I'm going to piggyback on Chris's wonderful thought and say, please hear me when I tell you that this is not the future of the church. But, that said, and you know the numbers as well as I do, things like this baby step into taking the church to the people. We got a wonderful denomination, and we better get with that addition to the paradigm of take to the church to the people who cannot get to the church seriously. And when we do, we are going to discover that there are a lot of people we can reach who will find real-life churches that I think will eventually become distribution centers for highly specialized ministries, because that's the way our world is going. So this is a lab, and you are welcome to participate. Your church is welcome to participate. We have tons of facilities and room. There's no cost to you for doing it. I'm not going to ask you for a nickel. We raise enough money actually in the world to support 2 real-life children living in poverty. We do it with DJ battles. And avatars vote for the DJ with the currency of Second Life. I convert it to US dollars on a Lindex exchange. Yes, it has an economy. I can then pay Children's International to support those kids. And we're just about to the point where we're going to break even on paying our annual condominium fee so that we can keep what I have invested in forever and ever. And yes, we are going to pay per capita. Any other questions?
Yeah,
Sir?
Right now, you may have mentioned before, and I may have missed it. What is your current membership?
Current membership right now is about 240.
Okay.
We worship in a traditional worship service anything from 8, 9 to almost 20 on a Sunday. I've had over 20 a couple of times on a Sunday. The morning service is 3 to 5 now. The Psalter services can run anything from 3 or 4 to almost 14, which is the capacity of the existing meditation ring. I have a bigger one ready to res anytime I need it. So it varies from time to time. Some folks come to several services a week, some only one. Just kind of like you would expect in real life. Some fall away for a while and then they're back. One never knows.
So you said you have a standing in an association in
yes.
And so
it's a real church just like your home churches.
So that means that you pay membership fees into your
per capita.
Per capita?
Yes.
That's great.
Oh yes. When you take on the obligation of being real, even in virtual reality, you take on the obligation of doing what you need to do by the church.
Yeah.
That's inescapable. And that's why we insisted no cutting corners, no special deals,
Right.
Cross the T's, dot the I's, pay your fair share. And in fact, we have folks that are contributing in excess of what it would take to pay, I think, $12 per head. Okay. We are going to take our membership list and take out the administrative accounts like the treasurer that isn't a real person, it just keeps track of money, and kind of winnow down somebody we haven't seen in a year. We're going to take them off. We know when the last time was an avatar logged in our membership list, so we have a way of pretty much keeping it clean all of the time. But once we've arrived at that core number that's actively working with us, we pay for them. And some of our folks are helping those who are a little more challenged financially.
Mm-hmm.
So since you have a membership list, you must have because I might go in there this afternoon and go, not for me, and so how do you discern? What makes a member?
What makes a member is someone who approaches an existing staff member or an existing member of the church and inquires about becoming a member, and then we can invite them to do that. We used to have an open membership, and while we have had very little trouble with the nuisance types in Second Life, I did have one. And we had a membership thing out, the person could click and essentially become a member, got rid of those. Now a person has to take an affirmative step with someone. That's just a little safer. Things you learn about the cultures of virtual worlds.
I'm sorry. So if you become a member and somebody's in another conference, or you transfer standing?
No. The UCC is wonderful about multiple memberships. I've got people that are Lutherans who are members of us. I got several Catholics. You know, who cares?
Okay.
We don't care.
We welcome anyone, wherever they are.
Extravagant welcome is alive here.
And we have a number of people who are clergy in ours and other denominations who come here for nurture.
Yes.
Do people tithe? Do you ask for contributions?
We do not ask for contributions. We have little donation bowls set up. There's one in the back of our sanctuary. There's one near our meditation grove. There are ones in our nightclubs. And people just donate out of the generosity of their hearts. Those people who have an apartment sometimes provide a little extra because they're paying, quote, rent for their little apartments that they log into automatically. When they come into Second Life, they can say, this is my home. And when they log in, that's where they appear automatically. So we provide that for folks who don't have another home in Second Life. But we've discovered that people are incredibly generous. Tremendous amounts of money are raised for charity in Second Life. Tremendous amounts of money. There are 11 million user accounts in Second Life, and at any given hour of the day or night, there are between 35,000 and 65,000 logged in. It's a small city functioning around the clock.
Some kind of mission.
Anything else? Did you enjoy your tour?
Yeah.
Come visit us. If you need help getting an account, please come and see us. We'd be glad to help you right here during Synod do that. And then we can meet you in World anytime, and you get your own guided tour. Thank you so much for coming. May Synod be a blessing.